have an appetite for destruction.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As you can see probably by the small picture that we have today for sale, unfortunately he cannot help us in this cast today. I will be solo casting this time, and I believe that Sale's probably saving the galaxy right now. So because I am going to be alone this time, we're going to be jumping into the games as soon as possible. But before we do that, I would like to thank RustBrain, our sponsor for this event, which is... wow, $2,000. That's a lot of cash. So, thanks to RustBrain, as well as every TL admin who has been helping us with this event. Thanks to all of you for helping us, especially to Apocalypse, who always is there for me when I don't have anything just ready. So, since I'm solo casting and we're going to have to get through very, very good games, I will not drag this any longer. Let's get right to it. So, let's see who we got today. Now, as I've been informed, this, as you can realize, guys, it's Neo Medusa. This is the second map that would be normally played in the best of 3. This is because... just a second, let me get there correctly. Remag is up 1-0. So, Remag is going to be our Purple's Protoss at the center-ish right location, while his opponent, who is going to be CheekyBum, is going to be at the left side, top left side of Medusa. Now, it's a PvZ. PvZ, we all can understand the most basic things, but let's remember, this is Neo Medusa, has some interesting features, like temples. You can always try to use some lurkers, perhaps, to get into your opponent's base, as you can see through here. Now, I'm going to just slightly get the sound up. I believe that's better. Okay, so let's see what these guys are up to. Now, Remag is first starting with a pound at the expansion, so relatively standard. He's going to be going for the expansion first. And we have an overpull for CheekyBum. Now, overpull is kind of the most standard thing that people used to do right now. It's a lot safer than going for a fast hatchery. Now, as soon as Remag realizes that his opponent is not in the first location he scouted, since he doesn't know when the pull went down, he throws down a forge. Pretty standard. Let's look what else. Now, from this point, as soon as the probe arrives at CheekyBum's main, most likely Remag will know exactly what he's up against. He will probably be a little bit late to try to deny this hatchery at the natural. We will see, though. Yeah, it seems so. Okay, so just barely missing it. This is probably because of how he scouted down here. If he just got close enough to see the creep, he might have the time to get here. But, nevertheless, he does scout the main, realizes there's no gas yet, so this is not going to be an extremely fast, maybe Zergling all-in. We see 2 drones and a pair of Zerglings. This is pretty standard at this position because the drone did scout that this was a forge first opening, so there's not really much of a reason to go for a higher Zergling count. So both players so far doing the right calls. Now one Zergling is left on the probe, while the other one is going to try to at least be at the front to realize when the gateway goes down. Now Remag is now going for his natural expansion. And until we get to the point where Remag or CheekyBum decide to do something better, this is going to be a few seconds of downtime, maybe even minutes. We could get another extra minute here where there's no actual aggression going on. While this is happening, CheekyBum does decide to take the other natural. Now, we have commented on this in the previous casts. This on Medusa is a little bit trickier than on other maps. First of all, it's harder to put a decent block in here so that you can have a decent sim city, and at the same time the units do have a small problem trying to get through and maybe reinforcing, so it's a little bit more difficult to take this kind of natural. But bear in mind, guys, if you do take this natural, you get not only one extra base but another extra base down here. It's a mineral only and it doesn't have that many minerals, but it is still good enough to really pump a lot of units, and especially a lot of drones in the early stage of the maybe mid game. So we will have to look for that. Now we do see that 400 minerals are pretty much banking up for remag. Let's see what he really wants to do with them, because he has not been spending that money. He might even take another Nexus, but we will have to see exactly if that's what he wants to go for. Now, so far there's only one gas, and the lair is actually... Where's the lair? Okay, so it's going to be Hydra try. Now, because of the speed, usually the speed means that you want to bust this position. And the reason why speed normally means that you try to bust is because with range, you can try to take down these buildings, but the Hydras are not mobile enough to try to be very aggressive. You can still do it, but it's a bit harder than that. With speed, you usually try to get your Hydras fast enough to the entrance so that you can reinforce your initial pressure. Now, very fast reaction time actually from the Zerglings to run from the Zealot. That's pretty good. At the same time, remag kept his probe alive for a very long time, which is very helpful. Now, with his Hydra bust though, remag I don't think has a lot of information on this. He is not yet decided where he wants to attack, although he did start another 2 cannons. I wonder what he actually saw to make him do that. Okay, so these Zerglings should block... Oh, that's actually a big mistake, because by allowing this probe to get into the main and see that Hydra den, remag is going to know exactly what he's up against. And we see even range being upgraded. Now, not only he saw the amount of drones in the natural, but he saw that there is no lair. So the first Zerglings are going to try to go, but oh, they get intercepted by some Zealots. Because of this, probably remag not only knows exactly what he's up against, but knows probably how to deal with it. We have still a Citadel and a Stargate. Now, when you're trying to stop a Hydra bust, the most efficient way is usually to go for Stargate and a Robo. This, although, is a little bit harder than on the mid game, because you do rely a little bit on your Reaver control and your Shadow control. It allows you to deal with this kind of pressure a lot easier. Now, we can see that already CheekyBum is preparing his Hydras in a very good position, and as soon as this upgrade is finished, that's going to do some damage. We do see another hatchery down here, and some Hydras not yet really coming where they should be. Now, bear in mind that CheekyBum is actually floating a little bit of money. Now, this can be for many things, but most likely it is going to be spent on another hatchery and some extra drones, because this pressure, already you can see that by letting that probe through, CheekyBum knows that this pressure and this kind of all-in might not work. Now, while all this is going on, we do see that right now remag is trying to take his natural. His mineral only. Pretty smart idea. Pretty smart idea at this position. Okay, so one Corsair, let's find some overloads. It should not stay here. That's an expensive loss, because that's the only scouting that right now remag did have. So that's not a good idea to lose it right there. Now, at the same time, this gateway is going to go down, but this should be pretty much solid. There's no more Hydras coming through. And another hatchery, and an Evo chamber. So, although the initial attack from CheekyBum didn't work, he still has a relatively solid economy. This amount of drones that he's producing right now is basically to make up for the difference of going for these Hydras early on. Now, we do see another Corsair trying to find out a little bit of more information. Definitely this Corsair should be scouting, not trying to kill overloads. There is no point with one at this specific stage. Now, Lair does finish. Remag didn't actually see, I think, when it finished, but he might be able to have seen with the fog of war for a few seconds this spire. Now, at this point, the question is what remag is going to do, and his answer to this is going to go for a heavy production of units. Now, this does work most of the time if your opponent is going for the spire and they're not making that many Hydras. It's a little bit more tricky when your opponent already went for this and he didn't sacrifice any Hydras to the initial cannons, because until this production really kicks in, and you usually want to have storms with it, which also takes a little bit of extra time, we can see that Kaidaring Amulet is already being researched, so storm is probably finished by now. With this, however, even if this push is relatively strong, it's relatively simple to add a few Sunkens. And this position may be a little bit tricky because of how the SimCity has been laid down. Or even maybe go Lurkers. There we go. Alright, whoa. Well, that was pretty slick. Okay, so the idea behind this is, if you're going for this kind of heavy commitment to units, although I don't think that CheekyBum actually noticed it with some units, if you're going to try to break with a lot of units and you find yourself fighting against some Lurkers, basically you are giving away what your strategy is to the Zerg, and at the same time you're still going to give the Zerg a little bit more time. Because of these two factors, this gives a Zerg a really good position. Now, so far both players have been really passive. Obviously from the pro side this is understandable, since he really can't push out until he can break easily through this and not lose any High Templars to perhaps some snipes. But at the same time, CheekyBum is not taking any other expansions. Now, this tells me that CheekyBum is slightly afraid of what remag is trying to do. And although this, in theory, is a good thing, because remag is probably going to try to break through relatively nicely. Oh, not to Hydras. And there is the Robotics Bay. So the Observer is going to be coming relatively soon. I do think that might be... Okay, so the push is coming out. Now these Hydras, yeah, they're going to just run... Whoa, that's an interesting storm. Now, the Hydras are going to run away. The question is, here are the Lurkers. So, breaking through this position is a no-go until you have Observers. At the same time, breaking through this position, since there are already also Lurkers, is a no-go. The question is it going to be more expansions? Yes. So CheekyBum realizes that while he has the Lurkers, he has bought himself some extra time. He does scout the mineral only, so he has this, at the same time he knows pretty well what the situation is. Now, this is probably not going to really do a lot of damage. We see the Lurkers burrow, and that means that this attack is probably not going to continue for a little while. Now, this massive force can flank this and kill it relatively easily. So while remag, actually this is really bad, he's wasting the storms on trying to kill individual Lurkers while a massive army is trying to flank him. He loses one High Templar there, and at the same time oh, that's a good storm, very good storm. Oh, very good storms, getting all the Lurkers except that one, and at the same time getting a lot of Hydras. The Lurkers are trying to flank from the other side, but that's not going to work really well. Now, remag really has to save these units. He has lost most of his gas expensive units. He doesn't want to lose any other Dragoons. Replacing the Dragoons at this point is going to be too expensive. He's adding even more gateways, and while he has a saturated natural... Whoa, wait, way oversaturated that mineral only. He doesn't have an easy way to take the next base. And that's where the problems are probably going to be coming from. How does he get another base? Because going through this location, where you don't have any possibilities to do maybe storm drops, we've seen so far no shuttles. If this is the only position that is really contained, as long as all the units from the Zerg are here, and he keeps producing and taking even more bases, this is going to be really tricky for remag to break through. Now, saving these Lurkers is a pretty smart move. So I like how CheekyBum is playing this game. He's taking more bases, he's buying time as long as the army is still moving through the map and it's not actually attacking you, you're still getting the better end of it. Now, we don't see the okay, there it is, the hive. So the hive is started pretty much as soon as I say that. It should probably be started a little bit earlier, but still, it's actually doing pretty well. Now, I have to say though, again, remag is trying to go for this attack, and while he does have an observer, there is no storm in here. Look, only Dragoons and Zealots. This is not an efficient way to deal with this. CheekyBum is probably getting a lot of a better end of this as he expected. While the Lurkers will fall, as soon as you only have Dragoons, Zerglings become extremely efficient. Wait, these Zerglings don't have speed? Okay, maybe they just got it. And that's demolished. That's really bad. And remag is even trying to reinforce with 4 Zealots and 1 Templar, just finds out that this is not a good idea. Now, remag did manage to get out a probe while all of this was going on and try to get out. Now, bear in mind, guys, it's 115 supply to... What? Actually, let me do that again. To 86. So CheekyBum still is down in supply, but if we look at how many units have been bleeding out from remag, it doesn't really look too good for him. He has a very good production, so that might save him. He is upgrading, I think, from 1 forge. Yeah, I only see... Okay, 2 forges. That's really, really good. But he doesn't have a good standing army. And every time that you have a weak army like this, and you cannot put any pressure on your opponent... Look, 3 more hatcheries. This kind of thing usually is not allowed when your opponent is being pressured. But since this kind of small task force isn't doing too much, and we see a probe snipe, it's not going to happen, and the cannons are probably going to finish as well. So this base is probably going to be safe for now. Now, remag really needs this base. If he doesn't get this base up, he's in a world of trouble. Because if we can already see how many bases CheekyBum is taking, although he's not well saturated in most of these bases yet. And to be fair, that's the only thing that is not going for CheekyBum, because everything else seems to be pretty good. Now, do we have any High Templars with this? Again, no High Templars. No Storms whatsoever. I mean, Protoss units are pretty beefy, and they can actually deal with Zerg units relatively well, but not without any High Templars. You have to eventually have a good High Templar count. Now, because of how this game is being going on... Okay, there's the 5 High Templar, it's gonna get sniped. Oh, actually it did Storm, but it missed because there was 80 energy and then again to 12, but it was so fast with the snipe that it just didn't go off. Now, CheekyBum is actually not doing as well with his macro as remag is doing, so remag is definitely getting a little bit of a good... At least he's keeping up with his macro, which is very important at this point. But if he doesn't get any kind of harassment or damage done... Oh, and a Reaver drop. Actually, ooh, that's a nice Reaver shot. Now, this probably is going to get something done. Probably the Mutas should come back and deal with this instead of trying to do any harassment, which, although the harassment is maybe killing a few probes, at this point, really, you want to saturate this base. I don't think that the amount of probes that he's going to get because of this is not going to be that massive, although he is doing a very good micro of it. Now, there's still some AFK drones, and to be fair, the amount of units that remag has is he's still up in supply, but I still don't see how he's going to plan to deal with a frontal attack, because his army doesn't look scary. It's mostly Zealots and Dragoons, and even Cracklings are good enough to just deal with it. And because of the fact that the hive is finished and we have a Defiler mound, remag is... I don't know how exactly he plans to break through any of these positions. Now, we do see that the army is trying to go and try to do something. Oh, some drones getting through. And oh, these Zealots are taking way too much damage from those lurkers. As soon as those Zealots die... Actually, well, they're not gonna die, but they're really, really damaged. These Zerglings, do they not have speed? Really? I'm not sure. I think they have speed. Maybe I'm just used to watching live games a little bit faster. Now, the economy from CheekyBum is... I mean, he has a lot of money, and if he was going for something like Ultras, this makes a lot of sense, but I don't see any Ultra tech. So he is not spending his money efficiently enough. And while remag is really macroing well and doesn't have the perfect army composition, if CheekyBum doesn't get on top of this, he might find himself in just a simple problem. Oh, 2 Reavers even coming up. So this is starting to look like a better army. Even 2 Reavers are actually a huge difference. Now the question is, where is remag going to go? He's going to go to the natural of the Zerg, and he is... Ooh. Okay, let's just... Sorry guys, I don't want to use ops because it just has too many things on the map. Okay, so I think that this small trade, although this looks like these Zealots are breaking through, there's a massive amount of units coming from the natural. There's even more units here. And this, as long as this doesn't kill CheekyBum, he should be well enough to really deal with this. You see, this massive amount of units that is coming through here, although it's mostly Zergling Hydras, is going to be really difficult to deal with. There's no storms. Where are the storms, remag? Remag! Okay, so Evo chamber goes down, the Zealots break through, and this is probably going to stop this attack. I don't think that this is going to be able to continue. Now, the Zealots are still in the natural doing some havoc, but they're mostly dealing damage to some scrap units out there. And even if he kills a few drones, it's most likely not going to be that big. Now, even though all I've been saying, remag is still up in supply by a decent amount, so he's still pretty fairly in a good position. It's just that if he manages to secure this base, which he will because of the cannons already finished, then he actually does have a good shot at this. I will say though, this doesn't look like a normal game. Look, this looks like a fastest map game. And we have a Reaver drop on the place where there is 8 hatcheries, and there's nothing to deal with the Reaver. And some Zerglings are gonna come in. Oh, these 2 Zerglings should be... How are they gonna... Oh, that one Zergling! Ah! Okay, that's good. Now, still, this amount of production should be more than enough to completely obliterate any Protoss. And right now, although remag has been up in supply for such a long time, he's actually at 129 against 112. So he is getting lower in supply than previously compared to how he was. I don't think that remag is going to be able to keep this up. Not with this army composition. At this point, you should be pretty much going for Archon-based armies, not basic Dragoon Zealot armies. Now, the game has been going for 20 minutes, and although both players have been doing a really good job of macroing, keeping themselves alive, I still think that as long as CheekyBum can keep his macro up, he should be more than capable to breaking any of these positions. Now, some more seconds are going to be going to this area. There's one Reaver there, and a few cannons. That should be defense enough. Although, okay, there's stop. And basically, at this point, I don't think CheekyBum really needs to try to kill these bases. He should probably try to trade with the armies, because these armies are really not going to be efficient against this composition. And then he can just go for a Doom drop. So CheekyBum does definitely have a lot of options, but I have to say, he's been such a long time on a defensive stance that I'm starting to fear for him a little bit, because although all the bases are now taken... Oh, okay, never mind, hold that thought. That's a massive force that is going, like, where is it going? Okay, this probably is going to give a lot of trouble right now to remag, because he cannot put any counter pressure, and he's trying to defend a few bases with just one Reaver and a few cannons, and there's already a Defiler there. So when the Defiler does land these beautiful swarms, cannons become completely useless, and oh well, okay. Okay, trying to kill a Reaver under swarm. Now that doesn't work. That doesn't work. So remag actually is up in supply a little bit again, but CheekyBum is coming back to it, and with a big bang. He's already at a good amount of units. Every time that these kind of Zerglings start trading, they're actually doing really efficient trades because of how cheap Zerglings are. So in the long run, if this keeps up, and you know, you still have a pretty much fresh base here for CheekyBum, he's probably going to be able to break this. I mean, I've been saying this for quite a while, and I've been thinking that remag should have died a long time ago, but it's still going on. And because of these Reavers and the expansions are really difficult to break. Oh, okay, so some Archons here, but unfortunately just 2 Archons, no Storms, woo, good Plagues, and a very, 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 very costly trade for the Protoss. Bear in mind that although this looks like the Protoss is getting the better end of the trade, the Zerg is still pretty much losing mostly Zerglings and Hydras. So the units are a lot cheaper to reproduce and a lot cheaper on the economy for the Zerg. And even, ooh, barely doesn't get that Archon, but with a few more Zerglings coming from these sides. Oh, trying to snipe a High Templar. Not gonna get it. Okay, so this has been going on for quite a while, and both of these players are still in a pretty nice supply, although CheekyBum did lose a good amount of supply there, so even though he, again, I still think that he's in a better position in this game. I do know that remag at this position, at this moment, has another base, but I still think it's going to be really tricky for him to break through this. Oh, well, those 2 Reavers, now that's really bold, and by that I mean that's not efficient, but at this point, I mean, remag is at 140 supply, And he lost most of his army. Look at that. He's got mostly Zealots and a few High Templars and a few Reavers at his expansions. Whoa! And the Surprise Guardians. Now, it does seem like they got stormed, maybe once. But even though this base is actually starting to look really weak, and even unpowered cannons at this moment, so this is going to lose one of the expansions. And when this expansion is down, or even just severely hampered, it's going to be relatively tricky for Remag to retake his economical stance, because he's right now on only 2 bases, while the Zeg is on 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's a huge difference in economy. Now, what else do we got here? I think Remag actually has a decent amount of minerals. He doesn't have that much gas, so he has to be really careful what he spends his gas on. While at the same time, while CheekyBum doesn't have that much money, he does have a pretty nice standing army. And basically at this moment we have to look at this, considering that this is going to the very late stage of the game, which means that very efficient units like Reavers, Storms, maybe even Dark Archons could make a big difference in this game. Now this is an interesting Guardian, having 6 kills already at this position, and I wonder, all these drops that Remag is doing, and while he's actually killing probes, this is not really efficient for him, because he cannot be losing any minerals. Oh, and another Guardian at this position, 16 kills. Oof. That's not looking too good. I mean, I have to say, Remag basically, I think the main problem is his army composition was not efficient. He was most of the time on Zealot Dragoon. And even if he gets this base, the Zerg can still get it later on. He doesn't actually have to keep it alive at this moment, because there is no way that these probes who are trying to get to this base, I am assuming, but unfortunately, because of the temples, not really working. And the base lives, and the 2 High Templars basically going down for nothing. And an Archon, well, okay, the Archon is going to try to go back. That's a bold High Templar. Okay, so at this point, basically, I feel like Remag is slightly falling apart. He lost most of his economy. He actually doesn't have pretty much any mining at all. The Zerg opponent, CheekyBum, has still not really mining, not this base. Oh, well, that's a drone production, you see? That's why you do these many hatcheries, so that you have this amount of drones when you need them. So I believe that at this point, Remag is basically trying to hold on for his life. I don't think it's gonna work, but let's see. Let's see. Okay, so a few more Guardians trying to be annoying here. They might get a few probes. Even though this Courser is... Actually, this Courser dies, so... It's more annoyance for Remag, who doesn't have the time to deal with this because he needs to get back in his economy. I mean, we do see a few funny, you know, like... Links cannot get through, probes cannot get through, but the big picture is pretty clear. 160 supply against 90. So, yeah. Not looking good for Remag. I have to say, though, he did have a pretty solid macro at the beginning. He just didn't know how to follow it up with a good army composition. Now, these storms are nice. Unfortunately, the Zerglings are very cheap, so they can keep running through and keep killing things. These cannons cost actually a lot at this stage of the game because Remag doesn't have any economy. And we can see through the minimap, you can see this nice swell of units trying to go and just basically break this position. Actually, a little bit of micro there, pretty much not really needed, but is always something good to do. And although I have to say that CheekyBum is not looking that hot on economy anymore. Like, he did produce a few drones here and there, but he's not really mining from all of his bases. Unfortunately for Remag, I don't think he can really hold on to his bases anymore. I think that at this point, when you have Zerglings in your main base, basically killing your production, and you at the same time trying to defend your natural, yeah, that's lights out. I mean, it's been lights out for a while, but Remag's still trying to hold on to it. Okay, so with the Guardians dealing with this base as well, you can see 5 kills, 2 kills, so that's 7 kills here. There are another 2 Guardians being morphed to try to deny this amount of mining, and these Trucklings are still doing damage. So, okay. It's a pretty decent game. CheekyBum was a little bit weird to not saturate his economy, but I have to say that overall, pretty good. Okay, so that's going to be game number 2, where remag was up 1-0, and that's gonna mean that it's a 1-1. Now let's see what kind of games we get from our staff after this. Just give me a second.